You're listening to Plane Crash, the book by Michael Diamond as retold to the kids of the Watertown SDA Church Junior Sabbath School. This is a story of one man's survival and God's faithful, miraculous rescuing power. Let's go. After the Ontario FAA Flight Service spoke to Anne Louise, Mike's wife, they contacted the Western Rescue Center, 42nd Air Rescue Squadron of the Military Airlift Command in McClellan Air Force Base. We have a possible down plane. This is what we have so far. Mike Chambers filed a flight plan with Oakland. He opened it about 2:30 this afternoon. Expected arrival time was 7:30 this evening at Flabob Airport in Riverside. It's now 11:30 and he hasn't closed it. We talked to his wife an hour after his scheduled landing time. She hasn't heard anything from him either. Anything from the communications check? Negative. We checked every airport on his flight path. Refueling stop? Negative on that too. Well, our work's cut out for us tonight. What else do you have? Chambers reported his plane is a Cessna 150. High wing, red and white. Got it. We'll take it from here. Then the Western Rescue Center called the Civil Air Patrol, also called CAP, C-A-P. The CAP was founded in World War II as a branch of the United States Air Force. During the war, the Air Force was so involved overseas that they needed help on the home front for patrolling the coasts. So a group of light airplane pilots volunteered their time and resources to patrol the American coastlines for enemy submarines. After the war was over, they became a volunteer search and rescue operation for downed aircraft. Today, the CAP is composed of dedicated men and women who are involved in saving the lives of downed pilots. The moment they get word that an aircraft is missing, they drop everything, including their work, and immediately start the procedure looking for the downed pilot, and they are not paid for this service. The phone's ringing. Bruce's wife, Thelma, shook him gently. What time is it? Bruce reached for the light switch. Around 1:30 a.m., Thelma answered. It was early Friday morning when Captain Bruce Gordon, CAP Mission Control Officer for the state of California, got the first call from McClellan. A mission control officer gathers all the data about a downed plane and coordinates rescue operations. Hello, said Bruce, sitting up in his bed in Santa Barbara. We have a missing aircraft. Okay, Bruce said. Fill me in, I'll get started. He gave him all the details. Bruce, an experienced flyer himself, jotted the information down on a pad he kept on his nightstand. After receiving the flight data, he notified Betty Miola of San Jose, California, the mission coordinator. Good morning, Betty, Bruce said. Good morning to you, Bruce. If you call me in the middle of the night, you must have a missing plane, Betty said, half awake. Unfortunately, yes, Bruce responded. Bruce filled her in and Betty went to work. Later, she would go to the San Jose airport to set up a search base to coordinate the search, but first she'd call the squadron leaders from home. At daybreak, Bruce Gordon called Major Burnham, the CAP information officer. His job was twofold. First, to receive civilian information about Mike's flight, such as if someone spotted a low-flying plane or maybe someone heard the noise of a crash. He also handled the press. When a plane goes down, the media wants to know all about it, so they contact him. Bruce also called the State Office of Emergency Services, or OES. Their job is to notify all the state law agencies that a rescue operation is underway. OES then called the California Highway Patrol, the Sheriff's Departments, and the Forest Rangers. I'm going to recheck the airports along Mike's flight route, Bruce told Thelma. It's 8 o'clock, daylight now, so even the small airports should be open. I'll double-check just in case they missed anything. While Bruce was making these calls, Betty had airplanes in the air flying Mike's flight route from Novato south to San Luis Obispo. Bruce stayed by the phone, hoping and praying to hear that Mike would be found alive. Chapter 9. Mike tried to sleep, but pain flashed through his body with each movement. He dozed fitfully. Seconds dragged on like minutes, minutes like hours. The early light of dawn was a relief. As the sun's first rays illuminated the blood-splattered cockpit, Mike looked around. What a night. I've had better. Still lying across the seats, he moved gingerly, then dragged himself up to a sitting position. He groaned with pain. I wonder how long will it take him to find me? Where's my jacket? Shivering, he remembered that it was outside the cockpit on the steep rocks. Oh, I must get it. But the slightest movement sent pain slicing through his body, like a butcher slicing a piece of meat with a razor-sharp knife. Why is there so much pain? Mike wondered. It feels like more than my arms are broken. I hurt all over. Mike looked through the broken-out windshield of the craft. Canyon walls loomed around him. He tried the radio. Nothing. Instruments look okay. The radio should work, Mike thought. He looked through the broken windshield again. Ah, the engine is ripped off of its mounts. So maybe the battery cables are disconnected and there's no power. Now Mike knew what he needed to do. I gotta get out there. I'll hook up the battery, get the radio working. I can also get my jacket. That was easier said than done. As he prepared himself to leave the cockpit, the pain intensified. He blacked out momentarily. I might not be able to get back in the cockpit once I get out, he realized. He took the radio mic and hung it out the passenger window from its cable, the side where the battery was, and turned the dial to the emergency frequency. That way I can work the radio from outside the cockpit if I can't get back in, he figured. He worked himself toward the jammed open door, slowly, agonizing with every movement. He paused on the ledge of the doorway. Only the main body of the plane was on the rock shelf. The wings and tail hung out over space. Boy, that's steep, Mike shivered. If I'd crashed 10 feet in any direction, I would have hit sheer rock. He pictured his plane bursting into flames and tumbling hundreds of feet down to the floor of the canyon in a ball of fire. Well, it's not going to get any better. Guess this is it. Mike pushed himself out of the craft and dropped about 2 feet to the ground. Groaning, he rolled over his jacket. I'll get it in a minute, he thought, waiting for the pain to subside. But Mike's problems were just beginning. As he tried to stand up, violent pain shot through his whole body. He screamed and collapsed on the rocks, writhing. Something else must be broken, he anguished. Maybe it's my hip? He didn't even consider a broken back. Mike thought that broken backs meant automatic paralysis, but in reality, his back was broken, in 3 different places. My jacket, he remembered, but he'd already rolled past it. Horrified, he stretched out his hand. He couldn't reach it. The cold-piercing winds pricked his flesh like needles. Mike couldn't get his jacket. He couldn't fix the radio. He couldn't walk. He was cold, hurting, and helpless. Lord, he prayed, help him to find me. And now another problem became evident, and it was ominous. He was sliding. Small stones, like tiny ball bearings, covered the steep slope. With each breath, Mike slid a few inches, sometimes more. At times he thought he had stopped sliding, but he hadn't. He slid inch by slow inch, but at least the sun was beginning to warm the rocks. Suddenly he was alert to the danger. A cliff! His breathing betrayed him. It seemed to steal away his life by inches. With each breath, stones trickled out from under him, like waves stealing sand from under one's feet on the seashore. He rolled onto his stomach as he approached the edge of the ledge. It looked like a 7 to 10 foot drop. I could land on my head! He positioned himself so that he would go off feet first. That way the fall won't be such a long drop. He slid off the cliff, landing feet first. He tumbled onto his side and rolled onto his back. Intense pain radiated through his body. I don't think anything else broke, Mike thought, continuing the slide. He looked up. He was under the shelf that supported the plane. He could see the tail section hanging over the ledge. Hope it doesn't break loose and fall on me. He shoved himself so his sliding would take him away from the potential path of the plane, should it give way. But the plane was more secure than Mike was. The surface that Mike had fallen to was the same kind that he had left. Hard rock, covered with tiny ball-bearing-like stones. And with each breath, he kept on sliding.
You've been listening to Plane Crash by Michael Diamond. If you're enjoying the story so far, tune in for the next chapter. And meanwhile, you can visit my YouTube channel where you'll find stories like these, Bible stories, mission stories, as well as Bible and history skits for kids and adults. See you next time.